Hi, everyone. Welcome to My Weight Live. Tonight, we're here with dietitian Danielle Aldous, who's going to be sharing really practical tips for changing our lifestyle to reach our best weight. And everyone who answers our trivia question tonight is going to get our free giveaway, a guide to healthy meals on the go. So be sure to leave a comment with the answer to that trivia question. Danielle, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So you're the lead dietitian at the Leaf Weight Management Clinic in Ottawa. And I would say of all the people we've interviewed, you had the most practical suggestions on how to make the changes necessary to reach and maintain a healthy weight. So that's really what we want to talk with you tonight.
Sure thing. I'm glad to hear that I was able to give such practical tips.
Well, you really were. And, I'd like to start with something that you said during our interview that really has stuck with me because I thought it was so fascinating. And that was that eating for good health is sometimes different than eating for weight loss. So talk a little bit about why that is.
Well, I think eating for health and eating for weight loss have a lot of similarities. But one of the things that we are attempting to do with weight loss is generate a bit of a calorie deficit. And when we talk about weight loss eating patterns, it's not all about the calories, but calories do make a difference. So as we're educating our clients about how to craft their eating pattern, one of the things that is very important is making sure that they understand a little bit about calorie awareness.
Okay. And so probably some of that is portion control. And then some of that is also just kind of being aware of the different nutrients in different foods. Is that kind of what you're teaching them?
Yeah. So calories are important, but the quality of the calories that you're eating is really important as well. So we could all work to just eat a little less in terms of calorie intake, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee that we have a healthy eating pattern within our weight loss strategy. And there's more and more evidence to suggest that the quality of the foods that you eat can make a really big difference on not just how well nourished you are, but how satisfied that you feel and how easy it is for you to manage hunger. A lot of our clients, when it comes to weight loss eating patterns, if they are eating a little less overall, find that they are challenged by hunger or cravings throughout the day. And so how do we make sure that we still have really good volume within our meals and snacks, that we're getting the nutrients that we need, but we are doing that in a way that helps our body to generate some weight loss by just under fueling slightly from what our body needs to sustain its weight.
Okay, so you've covered so many things just in the first couple of minutes of talking, and there's so many questions that I have. But you said something interesting at the beginning, and I want to dig in there. You said, calories aren't everything, and certainly quality is important, but calories do matter. And I think there's a lot of popular diets out there that say calories don't matter, it's all about carbs or some nutrient. Is that true? That sounds different than what you're saying.
Right. And it would be lovely if I was able to say, you don't have to think about calories whatsoever.
We would all love that. You'd be our most popular guest.
Right. But the truth is that, we do have to be in a bit of a calorie deficit in order to generate a weight loss. So that's one of the tenets of weight management eating, is that we have to be able to sort of just eat a little less than what our body is needing to sustain its weight if we are in that weight loss phase. And if we are in a weight maintenance phase, we're looking to really just match what our body needs to defend that lower weight. The challenge is often that whatever we've done to lose weight, we've got to keep doing to keep that weight off. So
correct.
When it comes to sort of generating a calorie deficit, it's important to make sure that we only go as low as what we're able to sustain over a longer period of time.
All right, so that gets to this fundamental question of diets don't work, and sort of this question of dieting versus changing our lifestyles. And I think that's a really fundamental thing, because what you're saying is if you do something that's pretty drastic and is very restrictive from a calorie perspective, and you're not going to be able to commit to it for the long term, that's not going to really be successful over time. Is that what you're saying?
Right. And what we're not teaching people is how to count every calorie down to the penny.
Okay.
Many may know that I'm speaking to you from Canada, and not that long ago, Canadian Mint let go of the penny. And we're often encouraging our clients to do the same when it comes to thinking about calories. So
I love that idea. Yes.
It's an awareness, not so much a calorie counting. But having said that, somebody very new to thinking about weight loss and weight management might need to build that awareness. And so they may be paying a little bit more attention to the calorie values and the nutrient values of their foods so that they're packing the most nutrient into a more calorie compact package, if that makes sense.
Okay, so my next question for you kind of ties to that, which was a more general question, like what are the key components of a good diet for weight loss? And I think you're going to talk about, kind of just general nutrients, and obviously that's going to be different for different people. But in broad strokes, what should someone kind of use as their guide as a way to really packing those nutrients in for the fewest calories possible?
So we always talk about volumizing your meals because we still want to make sure that our bellies are feeling full. We eat with our eyes even before our mouth. And so we want lots of color and interest and texture on our plate. So like many dietitians in the field of weight management and even diabetes management, I very much use a plate visual
Mm.
to teach that concept about trying to fill half your plate with vegetables or fruit, getting about a quarter of your plate as protein rich foods, because we know that protein helps to preserve our lean body mass.
Hmm.
So as we're losing weight or defending weight off, we're actually talking about losing body fat and preserving our lean body mass. And protein is a component in our meals that really helps us to do that. Carbs can be part of healthy eating. So starchy carbs are beneficial for giving us fiber and some key nutrients that, again, help to improve our overall health, heart health, and help us to keep feeling full. So it's not excluding any one thing, but any one individual may find they have to finesse those relative portions on their plate.
So you said something about earlier about making sure that we're feeling full. And I think so often carbs have gotten a bad rap. And really, in many cases, they're a great source of fiber. Talk about how you help people, focus on that plate in a way that does help them feeling full and feeling satisfied.
So I think that's where we're thinking about how you're developing your diet. So diet does have a bad rap. When people come in, they're thinking, okay, well, diets don't work. I've been on a multitude of different diets. And what we try to do is very much change that focus away from the diet plan that
Hmm.
you're going to hop on and maybe hop to another one and maybe another one. We're working to stop that cycle and really identify what is your best eating plan. So within weight management, we often talk about the concept of weight, but I think it's important to also think about best diet, and that is defined by you, not defined by an arbitrary set of
Oh,
rules. So
okay. I love everything you're saying here. We do talk a lot about this concept of best weight, but we've really never talked about this concept of best diet. And so often we kind of turn our authority over and say, okay, just tell me what to eat. But no one outside of us can know what our lives are like, can know what our preferences are. So I love this idea of thinking about, like what are the things that are going to work for me? So if you were counseling someone, what might be the questions you would have them ask themselves to figure out what is my best diet?
yeah, and I think we ask people to do a lot of awareness or do a lot of journaling to help them develop that awareness. So
Hmm.
taking a look at what am I eating? How do I feel as a result of eating that? I often ask the question, how long does that keep you feeling satisfied? Or how long can you go? How long are
Hmm.
you energized by that? Um, when in the day do you feel you need extra fuel? And is that about a message from your body that you're truly stomach hungry, or is there something else going on? Is there
Uh,
more of a craving element going on, a different cue other than a cue for fuel? So it's about identifying where your strengths are, where your challenges are, and what's going to fuel you well in your day. So some people will say, I need to make sure that my breakfast has more high fiber, starchy foods,
okay.
but at my dinner time, I don't need as much of those because they actually tend to maybe stimulate cravings in the evening. I feel better when I
Ah.
have more volume of vegetables.
Hmm.
and more protein.
So what you're really suggesting is someone, using a food journal for a few days with a real emphasis on thinking about how the foods they eat are making them feel. Did this give me energy? Did I crash 2 hours later? Did I, feel great 3 hours later? And kind of finessing and tweaking from there.
Exactly. And that may even change a little bit from one day to the next, depending on what the demands of your day are. So if there are days when you're more physically active, you may find that your food looks a little different those days than on days that you're less physically active.
So one of the things that I really admire about the work that you and Dr. Shao do at the Leaf Weight Management Clinic is that, unlike many facilities that are just, we're just going to help you lose a bunch of weight and then you're on your own, you guys are really helping people make lasting changes. So what are some of the things that you really focus on with people in terms of moving from that diet mentality? You alluded to it earlier. I've gone from this diet to this diet to this diet to more of a lifestyle approach. We start with that journaling and then what's next?
Well, I think it's, we often are asking the question, why? Why is that the case for you? And that we encourage people to do that in reflecting on their journal. Like, why do I feel this way at certain points in the day? Is it about my body asking for a different type of fuel? Or is it something about a learned behavior that I have had associated with that time of day? For example, a lot of people will say Friday evenings are a lot more challenging for me. I'm craving some fun foods on Friday evenings.
I want to celebrate. That's a real phenomenon.
So, okay, how do we work in some fun foods? How do we make sure that, you're having that balance in your day? So I think getting people to reflect on what is working for me and what do I need for success? What is it that is going to come together to be this best eating plan for me, so that it's got some structure, but it's also got some flexibility so that I'm able to stay on track and stay focused when I need to, but also allow myself a little bit of fun food, a little bit of indulgence, a little bit of a flexibility. And often we will talk about an 80-20 or a 90-10 kind of approach.
All right. So I want to come back to this idea of not embracing deprivation and really thinking about 80-20. But first, we're going to do a trivia question tonight. And everyone who answers it will get our guide to healthy on-the-go meals. So that question tonight is, which drink has more sugar? Is it 12 ounces of soda or 12 ounces of cranberry juice? So which of those do you think has more sugar, 12 ounces of soda or 12 ounces of cranberry juice? And Danielle, you're not allowed to answer because I'm sure you know, so no cheating. If you leave a note in the comments for us with the answer, you will get our guide to healthy meals on the go in your messenger inbox, whether you're right or wrong. So go ahead and put an answer in. Okay, so you said earlier deprivation doesn't work and we need to think about building those treats in. But I know so often it's just so tempting to feel like it's either all or nothing. We're either perfect or we're off the wagon completely. And especially if you're someone who's been on a lot of diets and you really have that diet mentality ingrained, how can someone think about a 90-10 or an 80-20 and incorporating treats without going too far, out of the center lane, if that makes sense?
Yeah. And I think when we're learning a new way of doing things, at the beginning of that learning, structure and a little bit of rigidity sometimes helps us to build confidence. So a lot of times we're working with clients to help guide them and give them some examples, maybe even some sample meal plans that they're able to put a little bit of their own spin on. So here at Leaf, we do use actually a web-based tool that allows us to kind of lay out some suggestions, but also allows our clients to have access to that portal and swap out meals to their taste that still fit their nutrition prescription.
Oh, that's great.
So sometimes, depending on where you are in your level of confidence, it may be about helping you to really shape things and structure things a little bit more, in line with not rigid, but like giving more structure. And then as you become more confident in that, moving to allow a little bit of flexibility and bring in some foods that you feel that are treat foods, but that you have some confidence that you can, that won't become problematic. So again, that's a very individual thing. Sometimes people will say, I have identified that this particular food is not good for me.
Yeah. And what you're talking about there is kind of those trigger foods, those foods that we love and we can't necessarily control ourselves around. It might be brownies, it might be ice cream, depending on our personal makeup. So
I'll confess that for me, it's barbecue chips.
for me, it's brownies. So there was a reason I used that first. So we've all got it. So what you're saying is for me, brownies might not be one of the first treats that I should think about incorporating because it might be harder for me to do that in a reasonable way.
Or if you do it in a way that you're really controlling the portion. So, for example, a lot of our clients might say, if you and I, Ainsley, were having this conversation and you were my client, I might say, well, think about, when is a brownie most important to you? Is it possible for you to purchase the smallest amount or bake the smallest amount that will satisfy your craving and control your access in that way? So, for example, a client might say, well, there's a really nice bakery near me and I can go and I can buy a single brownie. I could sit and savor it with a nice cup of tea or coffee. And that would allow
You're making me so hungry, Danielle. Thanks a lot. No, I'm just teasing.
That would allow me to feel like I've been able to have that pleasure without it being so tempting that it really throws me off track.
So what you're talking about is a couple of things: planning ahead, really thinking about what's going to bring me the most pleasure in a way that is also going to bring me pleasure and that I'm not going to kind of lose control. And,
right.
and also then, incorporating that into my meal plan. So I know I have that to look forward to. I know that's coming. I can incorporate it into my life.
Yes. Yeah. And we do a lot of work on challenging our thinking, so rather than having that very rigid thinking, can we get somebody to understand that, that 80-20 approach, and that an indulgence, a non-judgmental indulgence, is not wrong. It's not cheating. It's not breaking the diet. It's in fact planning for a healthy, flexible diet.
Because I think that is such a common thing. It's like, oh, I had my treat and I feel really guilty about it. And that in some cases might lead to more eating because we feel bad about it. So,
exactly.
Yeah. So if it's part of our plan, then we know it's healthy. It's going to keep us on track for longer, and it's a good thing.
Correct. Yes.
So we talked a little bit about portion control and why it's so important if we want to lose weight and keep it off in the long run. What are some of the suggestions or tips that you give to people to make it easier to be aware of how much they're eating and sort of nudge them in the direction of that having it be less?
We tend to eat with a lot of external cues. So definitely we encourage people to eat from dishware and with utensils and from glassware that they're familiar with the volume of. So at home, it's very helpful for people to begin doing some weighing and measuring when they're first, again, sort of journaling and becoming aware of how much they eat and drink. But weighing and measuring takes a lot of time.
Yes.
So one of the suggestions that we encourage people to consider is, measure out what fits in your common bowls, or measure out a portion and then see which of the bowls in your cupboard, I'm thinking of something like a dessert or a cereal, makes that portion look most appealing to you. So in clinic, we'll often do a measurement exercise with 3 different size bowls. And I get people to see if they can measure a half a cup into the bowl with only seeing one bowl at a time.
Oh, wow.
So very commonly, they will pour a lot more into the bigger bowl. They'll pour about a right amount into the medium-sized bowl. And they'll pour about a right amount, maybe even under pour into a very small bowl. But the comment is often that the very small bowl actually feels like I'm not getting very much, even though it looks quite full because the bowl itself is so small. The big bowl doesn't feel like I'm getting very much either because there seems so much less.
Exactly. It's fooling our eye. Yeah.
Than the top of the bowl. Whereas a moderate sized vessel or bowl in this case with a just right portion seems to tell our eyes and tell our stomach that we're getting a good portion, but not overdoing it.
So in some ways, we're almost training our eyes as much as we're training our stomachs. We're kind of adjusting the way we're thinking about, oh, this is the amount of food that's right to eat, if that makes sense.
That's right. And we often talk a lot about the size of the plate that we're eating from.
Mm-hmm.
So, trying to make sure that our plates are in the realm of about a 9-inch plate is a good idea. Because that's a plate that's just that little bit smaller, that it doesn't feel like, again, a really tiny side plate or salad plate. But it's also not a larger 10 or 12-inch plate that we might commonly get at a restaurant. The bigger your plate is, the more you will tend to serve yourself.
Mm.
And for most of us, once we have access, once we are served, we eat most of what's on that plate.
So really portion control starts with what we put on our plate in the first place, because yeah, it's really hard. That's going to be how you gauge like how much you're going to eat. But you
Yeah.
said something in our interview that has stuck with me, which was often asking ourselves, am I satisfied? Means that we will eat less than if we ask ourselves, am I full? Talk about the differences between those two questions.
So we do a lot of work to get people thinking about hunger and fullness cues. And we do use some tools that are commonly called a hunger scale. And we try to get people thinking about working with a level of satisfaction as opposed to fullness at the higher end of that scale.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we stop eating, if we're able to be mindful of when we're feeling satisfied, we'll often eat a little bit less than if we are asking ourselves, am I full? So it allows us to kind of perhaps stop and finish our meal at a level where we're comfortable. And in fact, that fullness tends to continue to build,
After
after.
we've stopped eating.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're able to sort of say, okay, I'm satisfied, I've had enough, that will probably tend to continue to evolve into a little bit more fullness, as opposed to stopping when you're feeling full, which then continues evolve into feeling overfilled and maybe uncomfortable.
So
Maybe
you also talked about serving yourself on plates and silverware where you know the size. And so immediately in my mind, I'm like, but so you're saying don't ever eat out of a bag. Always put a portion of something in a bowl or on a plate.
if you can, because again, we're trying to be a little bit more mindful. And when we're eating on the go, although we have to think about how do we get fuel in our busy lives.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can stop for a moment, pause what you're doing, and really pay attention to what you're eating, taking it out of that package or wrapper, and just having some reference points around you, that may be helpful in terms of allowing you to be a little bit more aware of that fullness cue.
I love that. All right. So we've talked about how it's not about going on a diet, but rather kind of changing our lifestyle. But we also know that for some people, meal replacements can be a really helpful tool. How should someone figure out if that's something that they should try? And what should their thinking be? Is that a tool that they're going to be using for a couple of months? How does Leaf approach this concept of meal replacements?
So, at Leaf, we have two approaches, I guess, two main approaches to meal replacements. One is a more intensive program, so an intensive lifestyle program that uses a full meal replacement for a duration of the program. So that is a situation where people are using only meal replacements as their sole source of nutrition, or the majority of their nutrition. And that the decision to enter into a program like that is not taken lightly. Like when we work with our clients and our physicians to determine who's a candidate for that, it is somebody who may have a need for a more acute weight loss for impacting a medical condition. So we're looking at trying to break a cycle where they've been stuck in terms of maybe a trajectory of weight gain.
Mm-hmm.
And we're trying to sort of reset and get back on track and work at getting a slightly larger amount of weight off in the short term. But along with that, we're really looking to build skills that helps to prevent regain or reduce risk of regain because of a more rapid weight loss with full meal replacement.
So it's not kind of a set it and forget it with meal replacement. You're using that as a tool, but you're also helping someone develop other tools that will eventually take over.
That's right. So, for example, one of that program that we offer through Leaf, only half of the program are clients on full meal replacements. The program is double in length, and all of that is built into helping people um, improve skills around not just understanding nutrition and meal planning, but changing their relationship with food, identifying some of the root causes that may be contributing to their weight challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And looking to kind of leverage the change in nutrition from the meal replacements to help us perhaps make some changes in medications that may have been contributing to weight gain, or allow for increased mobility that can help with improving their capacity to defend weight off. There's lots of different things that we could be using that full meal replacement for. The other approach is a partial meal replacement. And a partial meal replacement, when we're asking somebody about their lifestyle and their day, somebody who might be a candidate for partial meal replacement might be someone who's having a hard time with either missing meals altogether,
Mm-hmm.
and then becoming over hungry and overeating later in the day, or might be that they're much more tempted by higher calorie convenience meals, and it's sort of their nutrition goes one way or the other. Either there's nothing nourishing me if I didn't maybe consider using this meal replacement, or I'm using the meal replacement instead of a meal that could become very high calorie or very low quality.
Mm-hmm.
And they might be used short term, but meal replacements are food, and they have been shown to be very successful in helping people
They have been.
to work at defending their weight off, or being utilized at times when it is harder to be engaging some of the self-care strategies around meal planning and portioning and all of those things.
I love that. I think that's a really, really good description of the benefit that they can have, but also how important it is. And I really want to stress this. You and Dr. Shao have a wonderful, extremely supportive clinic. And I think it's so important to incorporate their use with kind of lifting our game in other realms of health and our weight.
Right.
Do a shout out here for why it is so important for people to seek medical attention, to find, a medical clinic that's very focused on the long term and focused on good health as really the emphasis.
Well, I think we're making efforts. I'm sorry, Ainsley. I'm sitting in a room that we are trying to make sure that we conserve some energy, and I've been sitting too long, so the light went a bit dim.
That's good, eco-friendly. We love that. That's great.
I move a little bit, and they come on. So the question was about why long-term support, or why medical support in particular for weight.
Yes, exactly.
So we very much are trying to get people to understand that weight is not their fault.
Yes.
That weight is a chronic medical condition, not unlike diabetes or hypertension. And nobody would question that perhaps I need to be involved with my diabetes care team on an ongoing basis.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'm going to need to see them a little bit more frequently when when I've got, an issue with my health condition. And sometimes I just need to touch base with them less frequently when
things are going smoothly. Well. Yeah.
So, and that's how we approach weight management, that this is a chronic health condition that, yes, you can do a lot about. So there's lots of things that you can take responsibility and control over. Those things are behaviors that you can practice that help to impact your health and your weight. We don't have a lot of direct control on the weight itself, but sometimes we need a little help and support, and we need to be able to talk it over and have some perspective on maybe what else could I be considering. With weight, we do tend to begin to think it's all about food and fitness. And the reality is that those play a role, but it may be about a medication that you started taking, or a stressor that you're experiencing, or a change, a stage change,
Exactly.
So
Or yeah, it's any kind of life stress. But I think what you're saying and what I admire so much about Leaf is you're giving people a structure, a place to come back and be held accountable for, oh, this went well, this didn't go well. But at the core, you are both extremely supportive and really focused on helping people. And I think often feeling that there are people who care, that are in our corner, who are giving us good suggestion and good structure can make all the difference.
and sometimes when you're caught up in a storm of something, it's hard to problem solve. And so just
Yes.
talking it out with somebody, and sometimes that's not just Dr. Shao and I, sometimes that's, other participants. So lots of times coming into one of our group sessions or some of the chats that happen in the waiting area, where clients and patients are supporting each other, are
Exactly.
very important too.
It takes a village. I mean, it really does. So, Danielle, you have been incredibly helpful. You've had so many wonderful suggestions. I feel like we've just scratched the surface. But thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been such a privilege to get to chat with you. And we really appreciate you spending 30 minutes with us on your Monday evening.
That's been my pleasure. I think I've had a great time, and I really enjoyed chatting with you. And this is a topic I'm passionate about. So time flies when we're talking like this.
I know, it's crazy. We will have to have you on again because there's so much more that we can and will talk about.
Absolutely.
So, folks, before we go, here's the answer to our trivia question. Which has more sugar? 12 ounces of soda or 12 ounces of cranberry juice? Actually, the cranberry juice has slightly more sugar. 12 ounces of soda has 39 grams of sugar, and a 12-ounce serving of cranberry juice has 42 grams of sugar. So orange juice, pomegranate juice contains similar sugar contents. I know, I was shocked as well. That is our show for you tonight, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. We will be coming back to you live on June 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern with Danielle's amazing colleague, Dr. Judy Shao, who's a physician who specializes in helping people reach their best weight as well. So until then, take good care of yourself and good night.